Hey y'all, we're back here at BookCon. I'm Austin Kleon, and joining me are two wonderful, brilliant women. Jessica Hagy is here, and Elle. Jessica just put out a book in March called The Art of War Visualized. It's a brilliant visualization of a classic text. Can you just tell us a minute about the book, Jessica, and what it's about?
It's the entire Sun Tzu text of The Art of War, just with visuals. And when I read that book, like, you think, whoa,
all professional
heavy.
Here.
Very nice. But you think it's going to be like super angry and like, this is how you put heads on spikes, and this is how you cut hearts out of people, and like terrible things. And it was really about strategy and thinking and thoughtfulness and being aware of your situations and mindful of others and all this good stuff. And it's written in like little Bible verses, like 300 verses are the entire book. So, you know, like New Yorker cartoons have the little caption and then there's an image, and I saw it as the reverse of that. So I already had the captions, I just had to put the images on it.
When did you, when did you come up with, when did pictures and words come together for you, or have they ever been separate?
I think they've always sort of been together, because when, you remember in 4th grade when you had to get that pen that has the 4 colors?
Right.
And they told you how to take notes, and the notes are like A, capital A, lowercase a, green, blue, red. Like, I could not do that, but I could like draw little circles around things, and I could like draw little characters doing what I was supposed to take notes on. And so thinking how things looked and how they fit together always made more sense than like bullet points to me.
We grew up about 2 hours away from each other. Mm-hmm. Where did you, tell me about where you grew up?
I'm from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, right outside Akron.
Yeah. And I grew up in Circleville.
Yes, right outside Columbus.
So, and where do you live now?
I live in Seattle, Washington.
All right. So how does Seattle, what does Seattle do for you creatively?
I think there's just something about being able to go outside and see water and mountains and smell air and be around people who hang out in coffee shops and noodle on things all day, and who do research and who do development and who want to hack things. And that sort of let's dig into this further culture is really satisfying.
Cool. So Elle, I know you're kind of a nomad right now because you're on book tour and stuff, but where do you call home?
San Francisco.
All right, and what does San Francisco do for you?
San Francisco is the community is very open, and it's a community that enjoys prototyping and iteration. So it's a community where you always feel like no matter what you're working on, you can share it with other folks, and they'll help you break it and put it back together.
Cool. Well, I live in Austin, Texas right now, which is really goofy because being Austin in Austin is just getting a little too much. But one of the things you two are both internet people, and one of the things I've found is that my kind of crew, or my scenius, Brian Eno calls it's not genius, it's scenius. It's your kind of scene of people, these people that kind of feed your life creatively. I found a lot of my scenius is online.
Yeah.
And that, the place that I live is a little bit more, the inspiration is otherwise. What's your advice to people who live in places that maybe, they're having a hard time finding like their scenius, or they're having trouble finding inspiration?
Well, I mean, how did you go from Ohio to Austin? Like you
Right.
found the little tendrils of interest and somebody who just like got you. And you can find that in a place, you can find that on the internet, and as long as you put out those feelers and start looking for those people, you'll totally find them and they'll find you too.
One of the things I say is that if you share what you love, if you share what you're interested in, the cool thing about the internet is you will bump into people that also share those interests, right? So we've been talking about daily practice this whole time. I want to hear about your daily practice. Like what is like your creative day kind of like?
I really can't get started working and sitting down and drawing things until I've gotten out of my house and walked like a mile or two.
Right.
And that usually involves like stopping into a coffee shop, like eavesdropping on people, wandering around, seeing what's new in the neighborhood, checking stuff out, seeing what the weather feels like, just sort of walking and thinking. Yeah. And once that's done, then I can get things done. But if I'm just cooped up in one spot all day long, I'm mush, and I don't make much good art.
It sounds like a toddler-free existence.
Most of the time. That is one of the beauties of daycare. Other than that, they also know how to feed and change and clothe and teach the little child to talk and do all of his tricks.
I have found so how old is your kiddo right now?
He's going to be 2 in July.
Okay, so I have a 2.5-year-old, so Owen's a little bit older, and then I have a 2-month-old, and I have found parenting to be I've found it to be a little bit of, it's probably been the biggest creative challenge of my life. Although I will say, I have found that, creative people have to play, and they have to kind of go back to that childlike state of play. I was going to ask you, like, have you gleaned any, like, things from playing with your kiddo? Like, has your kiddo taught you stuff about your work?
I think the most influence he's had on my work is that I have to remember that if it's out there, he's going to find it someday. And having that sort of sense of, like, I can't be terrible and nasty and horrible because I don't want him to grow up and be like, my mom is a terrible person and I never want to speak to her again. Like, I have to make this stuff accessible to him at age 10 when he can read it, and when he's 40 and questioning, like, what kind of home should we put this woman in? Like, it has to have a lifespan beyond just today.
Right. So, Elle, I know you have kids in your studio sometimes because I've seen you on your Instagram. Are those nephews? Are those kids of friends? Or
They are kids of friends.
Cool.
And I love having kids in the studio. I love seeing their exuberance, especially when you give them a couple of tools. There is something about the unbridled enthusiasm and creativity of kids, especially like around 3 to 6. You give them a paintbrush and they're fearless in front of a wall of canvases.
Yeah.
Watching them mix colors, there's no critical, judging mind in their. I watch them in awe. I learn a lot from kids.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about when I was reading your book, Elle, is that parenting is really about the should and must game gets amped up to a level that I don't think you can quite, understand until you're there. I mean, kids are an absolute, that balance between what you feel like you have to do and then what you have to do for your children. And one of the things I wanted to plug is I've read these 3 books by creative mothers this year that are all about that kind of integration of family life and art that I wanted to plug. There's one book that's wonderful called 100 Essays I Don't Have Time to Write by a woman named Sarah Rule. And she wrote all these essays, but she has 3 kids, and so she wrote all these essays about the theater and motherhood, and like in these little bits and pieces of time, like we talked about earlier. The other one was a fiction book called Department of Speculation by Jenny Offal, which is this great kind of examination of art and motherhood. And the other one that's really interesting is Maggie Nelson's The Argonauts that just came out recently. It's interesting because I'm a dad, but I found that reading about mothers and art has, for some reason, it's like helped me more than like actually reading about like dads and art. I don't know if that's what that's really about, but anyway. So we're in New York City. I know you have. What do you do when you're in New York City, Jessica?
I wander around.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As soon as I check into my hotel, I change my shoes and just take off and start watching people and popping into weird shops and just checking the place out, sort of absorbing it by osmosis.
Now, Elle, you've lived here before, right?
No.
Have you not lived here? Okay, so when we had dinner that one time, you were just visiting and
Yes.
you were in. So what do you do when you're in town?
Well, I was just thinking about what I did yesterday, and I just went right into my room and closed the door.
Really?
Really?
There's something about the solitude of an anonymous hotel room that's fascinating to me. It's a completely anonymous, quiet space. And to be able to write and read, paint. I've been painting a painting a day while I've been on the road. And no matter if it's like on an airplane tray or in a hotel room, it's got to get done every day.
When I get the most work done is when I take off and I go to a hotel for a weekend and just close the door and do that. Like, it is the most productive time.
Is it Toni Morrison who does that? Who's always kept a hotel room in her small town? I forget what it is. There's one writer.
I think there are a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, they always keep and I think she I might be getting it wrong, but she like takes everything off the wall, and she's got like a dictionary, a Bible, a pack of pack of playing cards, and like her typewriter or something.
And a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
Whiskey helps with wherever you are.
Whiskey helps a lot until it doesn't, right?
There's an arc of whiskey power that goes like,
It's interesting that you say there's an anonymity in a hotel room, because the thing I love about New York is there's anonymity in the crowd.
Oh, totally.
You know,
Yeah.
I like walking around and just blending in. But then if you want to have an interaction, you will have an interaction at some point. You know, especially if you like go buy a sandwich or something. You know, you can have that interaction if you want to, or you can be completely anonymous. You know.
Will you work or practice today? We were just talking about it because it's a busy day.
Yeah, well, this morning I jotted down a few things that I thought of, and then I'll probably draw some more stuff when I get back, but I have to get out and move around before I can do that.
Yeah.
It's just like a functionality of me.
And I think that we want to make that point again, that when you say the work, I mean, the work is many different things to me. I mean, it's not just writing, it's not just drawing. And I actually know a lot of cartoonists who they'll actually write down the things they want to draw before they even go to draw, you know?
And like you were saying, like a lot of the books you read are actually prep work for the next piece of art that you're going to make. Like you have to feed the system in order to get anything out of it.
Right. So if you had one piece of advice to the people out there for starting a daily practice, what would you do? Because we're running out of time a little bit, but just like a little sound bite for each person.
Start small and start consistently. Because if it's small, it'll get addictive and it'll get bigger, and then you won't be able to quit it.
Something small every day. What would you say, Elle?
I would say if you want to connect more with your must, find 10 minutes.
10 minutes every day. That sounds great. Well, I want to make another plug. This is The Art of War Visualized. It's by Jessica and Elle's fabulous the Crossroads of Should and Must. These are great books. I had a really fun time talking to y'all, and I look forward to hanging out some more. Right after the break, we're going to go back and we're going to have some more fun and hang out. And I'm new to this TV host gig, so I actually still have a few minutes left. But it was really a pleasure to talk to y'all. And thanks for coming. All right.